أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ به من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم وقال الله تعالى بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما أما بعد فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدى هدى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل بدعة ضلالة. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did not create this universe without a purpose. He revealed the Quran not without a purpose. He put several stories in the Quran not without a purpose. Every story has several characters but not without a purpose. The reason I am giving this khutbah today is to focus our attention that when we read Quranic stories, we tend to focus on the main character. For example, the story of Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. If you ask anybody here who is the main character, Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam. But is he the only character in this story? The next important character is Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam. Not without reason, not without purpose. In the same story, you have the story of the Imratul Aziz, the wife of the Aziz of Misr. She plays a negative character. But is it without purpose? Nothing is without purpose in Allah's book, in Allah's creation. We all human beings have been assigned certain roles to play. We are all characters on this world stage. How we play the character determines what happens to us in the hereafter. There are many negative characters in the Quran, but from each one of them we can learn something. So I want to talk about one particular character who does not represent only a character. He represents a mentality. I'm talking about Qaroon. In the Quran, Qaroon is mentioned 4 times. And on 3 occasions, Fir'aun, Haman and Qaroon are mentioned together. Fir'aun is not the name of an individual, it was the title of the Egyptian kings. The word Haman does not occur in Torah. Qaroon does not occur in Torah, but there is Qaroon, who is mentioned in Torah, probably the same character. If you look at it deeply, the reason Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning these people together is not random, because there is nothing random in the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's Ahkamul Hakimin, the wisest of the wise. In my very limited understanding, these 3 names represent 3 categories of people who always join hands with each other. They may part company with each other, but when their interests are, they will come together. It happens. One day a person is your enemy, next day he will be the president of your party. So Pharaoh represents the rulers, ruling class. Haman represents the politician. And Qaroon represents the business, the money, the wealth. They all go together. That's the Quran. Fir'aun wa Haman wa Qaroon. All 3 together are mentioned 3 times. What's the root word of the word Qaroon? And it's very interesting, some scholars mention that the Quran and Qaroon may have the same root word. So if you look at it, Farq and Qaran. From Farq we have Faruq, Umar radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Farq is to separate, to distinguish, to discriminate. The great separator, the great discriminator, Umar Farooq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. Quran, the root word, it is qarana al-ma'u, the water was gathered. So Quran is something in which the verses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have been gathered. Another root word may be qara'a. So it's the book which is most widely read and recited. So Qaroon, which is Quro in Bible, book of Numbers, chapter 16 I think, and many verses in that, we'll talk about them. That it could be that he was, some of the scholars mention, he was a reciter of Torah. He was actually a paternal cousin of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. His father's name was Izhar, which means the sparkling one. And he was very well versed in Torah. He was an alim, according to some of our mufassirin. The other explanation is Qaroon is Qarana, he collected a lot of money, a lot of wealth. He was the wealthiest person of that time. And Quran mentions that although he left Egypt with Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, he was a Jew. He was a cousin of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. He went to the desert of Sinai, but he brought all of his treasures with him, which were being carried over camels. And even the keys of his treasures were making the people tired in carrying them. Yusuf Ali, one of the commentators of Quran, mentioned it very briefly that although he left Egypt physically, he left his heart in Egypt. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks to us about his story. There are a few verses that I will say, but some introductory remarks that Qaroon rebelled against Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. And our scholars give different versions of how he did it. One of them is actually that he hired a woman to make a false accusation against Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. And he was not alone. When you are a celebrity, there will be people who will pump you up. There is an Urdu शेर, कुछ तो होते हैं मोहब्बत में जुनून के आसार और कुछ लोग भी दीवाना बना देते हैं. Some people are born crazy, but if they're a celebrity, there are other people who will make them even crazier. So according to the book of Numbers from Torah, he had 249 admirers. They all went down with him. There were 250 together. The second category is of people who have some sense in their mind, who will go and advise you. Don't do this. We'll talk about that. 5 pieces of advice that those people whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given the wisdom went and talked to Qaroon about. The third category is people who are from a distance, who are not your near ones, and who wonder, we wish we had the same amount of wealth. We wish we were so famous as him. And when things come crashing down, thank God we were not with them. All these 3 mentalities are captured in these verses of the Quran. That's why I wanted to talk about. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, Inna Qaroon kana min qawmi Musa. Qaroon belonged to the people of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. Quran doesn't give us the lineage. The Torah says he was a cousin. فَبَغَى عَلَيْهِمْ. He rebelled. The reason for rebellion is, I have money. Who is Musa alayhi salatu wasalam and the poor people with him? They're slaves. I have connection with Pharaoh and Haman. I have money. Why should I be following him? But there are different other stories. وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْكُنُوزِ مَا إِنَّ مَفَاتِحَهُ لَتَنُوءُ بِالْعُصْبَةِ أُولِي الْقُوَّةِ. He had the treasures and people would be carrying the keys. So now, as I mentioned, there were 249 admirers of his, but there were also people who saw what would come next. And oftentimes people ignore the advice. They are our enemies. They have their own agenda. So they gave him 5 pieces of advice. Number 1 is قَالَ لَهُ قَوْمُهُ. The people that he was rebelling against were actually his sincere admirers. If somebody is criticizing you for your own benefit, he's not your enemy. He's not a ghaddar, he's not a kafir. So they say, Wala la tafra. Don't be boastful. Don't show off. Inna Allah la yuhibbul farihin. Allah doesn't like this attitude. Okay. Now, interestingly, the story of Qaroon comes after the story of Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, who was the king. And I gave 2 or 3 khutbahs on him. Every time something would happen to him, what would he say? Adam min fadli Rabbi. There was no arrogance. It's all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there's a contrast between Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, who had far more money than Qaroon, who actually combined Fir'aun, Haman and Qaroon. He had the power, he had the nabuwa, he was builder as well, he had people building for him, and he was rich, far richer than anybody else. But he was the nabu, he had the nabuwa, the ilm and the hikmah. Qaroon had the ilm, he did not have the hikmah. Very important thing. Second thing they say, وَابْتَغِ فِيمَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةَ. And whatever Allah has given to you, use it to seek the other world, the benefit of the other world. But they also said, third thing, وَلَا تَنْسَ نَصِيبَكَ مِنَ الدُّنْيَا. And I talked about that part in the last month's khutbah. Do not forget your share. We are not telling you that you stop having your business, building your empire or anything. All we are saying is that there is a priority, there is a ratio and proportion. Get from this dunya what you need for this dunya. The extra things, you can buy your akhirah with it by giving to those who do not have it. So share your wealth. Fourth thing, وَلَا تَبْغِلْ فَسَادَ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ وَأَحْسِنْ كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ. Do good to people as Allah has done good to you. Now, there is a lot of hikmah in this part. What they are also trying to tell him is that the wealth that you have is an ihsan from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He has been good to you. It's a test for you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hal jazaa'ul ihsan illa al-ihsan. Can the reward of ihsan be nothing but ihsan? If Allah has done ihsan to you, shouldn't you pay it back to the people? You live in a community, the community, I can say this here, sitting here, this community held my finger and made me walk. I couldn't talk when I first came. It's because of the people sitting around in this community who encouraged me, who motivated me, who supported me when I needed it. It's now my time to pay it back to those people without mentioning their names. Many of them are actually sitting over here. May Allah bless all of them and their family. And the final thing which is very important, وَلَا تَبْغِلْ فَسَادَ فِي الْأَرْضِ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُفْسِدِينَ. Do not use your wealth and your influence to create fasad, because Allah doesn't like it. And the reason is, وَلَا تُفْسِدُوا فِيهَا بَعْدَ إِصْلَاحِهَا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us this world. Life did not emerge the moment Allah created this earth. It has to be made suitable for human life. It has to have all the resources to sustain human life and other existence. It's the hands of man. ظَهَرَ الْفَسَادُ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ بِمَا كَسَبَتْ أَيْدِي النَّاسِ. It's the human beings' hands that destroy and are destroying and will destroy this earth if nothing is done to prevent it. This is the biggest sin if you look at it in these things. That you have your wealth, you are boastful, maybe we can ignore it. You are using your money just for this dunya, maybe. You are not doing good to others, maybe. But do not use your wealth and your influence to create mischief. And the mischief in this sense, if you look at it, is to turn people against Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. The prophet of his time, the Nabi, the Rasul, turning people against him. That was the fasad. He created two parties. One party supporting him, and the other party is with Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. He created rift between people. Those are the things that also constitute fasad. To create an atmosphere where people have nafra. Instead of loving each other, they hate each other because of whatever affiliations they may have it. The haves and the have-nots, creating a division between human beings. That's also one category of fasad. So after listening to this, what do you think would be his response? And again, this is where he lacked the hikmah. And the worst part is that, as some of the Mufassirin mentioned, he was not a jahil. He was a learned man. He was with the Prophet of his time, with whom he had close relationship, and he was a reciter of Torah. He did not have the hikmah. The far-sightedness was not with him. So he said, what are you guys talking about? قَالَ إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُهُ عَلَىٰ عِلْمٍ عِنْدِي. All that I have is because of my own knowledge. I'm smart enough. What do you think? I got this money because of my own business decisions, because of my own strategy, my own planning. I'm smart enough. You guys are not smart. What are you talking about to me? And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala right away jumps. أَوَلَمْ يَعْلَمْ. Did he not know? And the scholar said this means he knew. The style, the Arabic style is أَوَلَمْ يَعْلَمْ. Doesn't mean that Qaroon didn't know. He knew it because he had read the history. He had read Torah. He knew what had happened to people who were far wealthier, far smarter, far stronger than him. But despite this knowledge, he was saying this thing. So, أَوَلَمْ يَعْلَمْ أَنَّ اللَّهَ قَدْ أَهْلَكَ مِنْ قَبْلِهِ مِنَ الْقُرُونِ مَنْ هُوَ أَشَدُّ مِنْهُ قُوَّةً وَأَكْثَرُ جَمْعًا وَلَا يَسْأَلُ عَنْ ذُنُوبِهِمُ الْمُجْرِمُونَ. They did not know that in the people who came before him, there were those who were far stronger than him in strength, in influence, and far richer than him. And a time comes when the sinners will not be given a plea bargain opportunity. They will not be asked, how do you plead? I plead not guilty. You're on the web all the time, you're doing this thing. I plead not guilty because I was crazy at that time. No, that is not in Allah's book. When the time comes when Allah pulls the rope, they will not be asked, are you guilty or not guilty? Your guilt is written in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah protect all of us. So now what happens to the people? So there's a mention in Torah, not in the Quran, that when he made an accusation against Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, Musa alayhi salatu wasalam said that if I am right, then none of you will die a natural death. You will all be swallowed up by the earth. You will sink in the earth. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned, in the interest of time, just a little bit of shortening, that one day he came out to the people in all his pomp and show, with his camels and his treasures and everything, and people who were looking at this world only, they said, we wish we had it. Ya layta lana misla ma utiya Qaroon. We wish that we had what Qaroon had been given. Innahu lazu haddin azim. He has been given a great fortune. How lucky this man is. They didn't know that as soon as the statement was done, Allah ki lathi, Allah's power comes. The people who had been given some sense, there's waqala lazina utul ilma, people who had been given knowledge said, wailakum. It's really sad that you're making this statement. May you be destroyed. Sawabullahi khairul liman amana wa amila swalihan wa la yulaqaha illa sabirun. That if you were to wish for something, wish for the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not from what Qaroon has. Because Allah's reward is best for those who believe, who do good deeds. And Saleh, as I mentioned, Amr Saleh, to do something that benefits others. Qaroon had money and influence, not benefiting anybody. And said, but this status of not competing with others in their worldly wealth, continuing to be believer in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and being patient, is not given to everybody. It's given to a special class of people, as-sabirun. Very important part. And then فَخَسَفْنَا بِهِ وَبِدَارِ الْأَرْضَ فَمَا كَانَ لَهُ مِنْ فِئَةٍ يَنْصُرُونَهُ مِنْ دُونِ اللَّهِ وَمَا كَانَ مِنَ الْمُنتَصِرِينَ. So then, as Musa alayhi salatu wasalam had predicted, they sank, all of them, without exception. And those who were only the other day saying, we wish we had what Qaroon had, were saying, وَأَصْبَحَ الَّذِينَ تَمَنَّوْا مَكَانَهُ بِالْأَمْسِ يَقُولُونَ وَيْ كَانَ اللَّهُ يَبْسُطُ الرِّزْقَ لِمَن يَشَاءُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ. That it is only Allah who expends the risk to whom He wants. Now they don't want what Qaroon had it. And وَيَقْدَرُ لَوْ أَنَّ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَيْنَا لَخَسَفَ بِنَا وَكَأَنَّهُ لَا يَفْلِحُ الْكَافِرُونَ. That if Allah had not been kind enough by not making us one of His party member, then we would have gone down as well today. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولذكر الله أكبر. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي والذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. And Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has mentioned a hadith from Saleem bin Abdullah reporting from his father. أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال بيننا رجل يجر إزاره إذ خسف به فهو يتجلل في الأرض إلى يوم القيامة. Scholars mentioned that this is a reference to Qaroon, that there was a person who was actually dragging his clothes out of arrogance when the earth sank down with him, and he will continue to sink down till the day of judgment. May Allah protect all of us. So, was it written for Qaroon that he will do this? And Allah knows everything. But we have the choice to make. And there are several verses in the Quran which talk about it. One is, Inna hadaynahu sabila imma shakiran wa imma kafura. And we have shown in the path. You can either be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for what He has given you, or you choose to deny it. Qaroon had the option He had the Musa alayhi salatu wasalam with him to tell him all of this. And he chose not to thank Allah, to say, I have been given this because of my own knowledge, rather than Hada min fazli Rabbi. Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam. وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. It's the soul that we have been given. It's our responsibility to purify this soul by our actions. Otherwise, if our soul is tainted, there will be no saving it, except Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Quran also mentions وَهَدَيْنَاهُ نَجْدَيْنِ, and we showed him the two paths. It's like you are driving, you reach a fork. Now you have to make a determination. Go this way or go that way. This world is a world of possibilities. The path we choose determines the next step, our future. So choose your path very carefully. I want to end this part of the khutbah by quoting Iqbal. He said, Zamir pa ko nigahe baland masti ye shauq, na mal o daulat Qaroon. It's about Qaroon. Na fikr aflatun. He said, Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I do not ask you to give me the wealth of Qaroon. I do not ask you to give me the intellect of Plato, but I ask you three things. Three things, he said, Zamir Pak, a purified soul, a purified heart. Second thing, Nagah Balan, far-sightedness. What Qaroon lacked was far-sightedness. He couldn't see what others could see. And the people who saw were not prophets. Ordinary common people came to him. We can see where you are headed. And the third thing, Masti Ashok, the delight of divine love, love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give all of us a purified soul, a purified heart, far-sightedness to determine, to know what our actions live for us in future, and to give us the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Nothing is greater than the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second part I want to talk about is related to the month of Dhul Hijjah. And inshallah this masjid will be arranging for the Udhiyah to be done in Syria and other countries. Brother Rafai is here, you can ask him for all the details, and please also contribute to the masjid. So what I want to talk about is some confusion in the minds of people about the Hadi and Udhiyah. And this question comes around this time again and again. Just like when we enter the month of Ramadan, the issue is about moon sighting and Taraweeh, is Taraweeh Sunnah or not Sunnah? Is there 8 rakats or 20 rakats? So every year this question comes. Should we be doing Udhiyah if we are not going for Hajj? It is not in the Quran. That's the usual thing, it's not in the Quran. Taraweeh is not in the Quran too. Okay. So now, the distinction between Hadi and Udhiyah. Hadi is a gift, in a say, that the Haji, Hujjaj, take with them to be sacrificed in certain days of the Hajj at a certain place. Okay. So if a person is performing the Hajj, he has to do the sacrifice. If he cannot do it, then he has to fast 3 days while you are over there, not on the Yom Arafah, not on the Yom Eid, and 7 days when you come back. Simple. Udhiyah is something which people who are not on Hajj do it, so that spiritually they have a feeling that they are with the Hujjaj and they get the reward. It's a reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a bonus. You know, this year Dr. Mushtaq will talk to me about Taraweeh after listening to a lecture, that it's actually Allah's blessing upon us. So Udhiyah is Allah's blessing for us. You have not gone to Hajj, you do it, you will get the reward. But what more do you need? It's in the Quran, not in the Quran. So Udhiyah is to be done one per family, one share. It can be one share of the cow, because 7 people can share in it, or one lamb if you want to do it. In fact, the scholars mention that if a person is performing the Hajj and his family is, for example, here, if he has the means, he definitely has to do the Hadi. He should also do the Udhiyah on behalf of his family in his homeland, because his family is still there, they are not on Hajj. If the entire family is performing the Hajj, then it doesn't have to be done. So how can we prove to people who want the proof of everything from the Quran? Okay. As if the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ is not from the Quran. Ittiba' Rasul ﷺ is fard from the Quran. Ita'at of Rasul, fard. But the Sahaba came to the Prophet ﷺ. Somebody may have this question in the mind. He said, Ma hadhihi adai? What are these Udhiyah? And he says, Sunnata Abikum Ibrahim. Okay. We'll talk about that in a minute. And they said, Mahi alana. What do we get from it? It was the sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. He got the reward. What do we get? And say, for every hair you have a reward. I said, what about the wool? I said, for every shred of hair you have a reward. But how do we prove from the Quran? Words after words after words in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala addresses the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam individually. He addresses all of us. I'll just go through this word. Sadaq Allah fattabi'u millata Ibrahim hanifa. Wa huwa muslimun wattaba millata Ibrahim hanifa. Dinan qayyaman millata Ibrahim hanifa. Wattaba'tu millata abai Ibrahim. Wattaba'tu millata abai Ibrahim wa Ishaq. An attabi millata Ibrahim hanifa. الدين من هرج ما جعل الله من الدين من هرج ملة أبيكم إبراهيم. The scholar says millah among many meanings also means sunnah, because right after millata Ibrahim hanifa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions inna salati wa nusuki wa mahyaya wa mamati lillahi rabbil alamin. 4 things. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was ordered to follow the sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam, to the point that our prayer is Salat Ibrahimi. Before Islam came, there were people in Makkah who were offering salat according to the sunnah of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. It's written in the books. Nusuk, Udhiyah, Hadi, both Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam. Living like Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam lived. Dying like Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam died. But if you want Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to write a verse in the Quran, or people who live in the United States and who are PhDs and doctors, you have to perform udhiyah. This is not Allah's style. Okay? Because then you will ask, should we shave the hair under here? Where is it in the Quran? Should we shave our pubic hair? Where is it in the Quran? Should we cut our nails? Where is it in the Quran? Where is circumcision in the Quran? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala encapsulated it, millata Ibrahim. Period. How do we know the millah of Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam? Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam. What else do we need? So now, next question, again this is asked again and again, can we just give money? Did Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam give money? No. During the lifetime of the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, we had very rich people, far richer than anybody sitting here. Abdul Rahman bin Auf, Usman radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. They never came to the Prophet and said, we can give money. Nobody did it. And the question is asked by people who can actually do both. They can do an udhiyah here, and they can give money to this guy sitting over there to send it to Syria. They can do both. Double reward, double dipping. It will wala yanqusu min malikum. It will not decrease your mal at all. Because the money that you are seeing you're going to spend by going to Disney World or somewhere else, or just taking your family for a dinner, there you don't ask a question, should we be spending this money or giving this money to a poor person? ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت السميع العليم. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us to follow the sunnah of his Khalil Ibrahim alayhi salatu wasalam and his Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون وأقيموا الصلاة.